All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to dive into the absolutely incredible journey of Tom Brown, one of the co-founders of the AI giant Anthropic.
And you know what? Let's just kick things off with something pretty surprising right from the man himself. This quote right here, it really just makes his story all the more incredible.
So you see that, and it makes you wonder, right? How in the world does someone go from, barely scraping by in the mathematical basics to co-founding one of the most important AI companies on the entire planet? It's a huge leap.
Okay, so let's dig into that. We've got to rewind the clock a bit to see how this totally unlikely journey even got started.
Yeah, his path was, well, it was anything but a straight line to the top. Look at this timeline. It was this whole series of different startup roles where he was really learning these crucial lessons in the trenches. I mean, right out of MIT, he's the first employee here, the first engineer there. He even founded his own YC startup. All of this before he ever landed at OpenAI.
But what's really interesting about all this is the mindset he built during those early, super scrappy years. This is key. He actually has this amazing analogy for it. He talks about shifting from a dog mindset, which is what you have in school, right? You're given tasks, you wait for approval, to a wolf mindset, which is what you need at a startup. Because in the startup world, the default is failure. The company just dies if you do nothing. You have to go out and hunt for your own food. You have to figure out how to survive on your own. And he says that mental shift, that was the single most valuable lesson he ever learned.
But of course, this journey wasn't all just valuable lessons. It had some really dark moments too. He hit a real low point, a total burnout, when he was the lead engineer at this dating app called Grouper. The problem was, Tinder had just launched, and let's be honest, it was just a way better solution. So he found himself in this awful position of trying to recruit engineers for a dream that he himself didn't even believe in anymore. He calls it a death march. Just brutal.
So, okay, after hitting that wall, completely burnt out, Tom does something incredibly courageous. He makes this massive pivot into a field that honestly seemed completely out of reach for him at the time.
And it wasn't just him doubting his own abilities. His friends were deeply skeptical. I mean, they straight up told him his new passion for AI safety was weird and bad. They compared it to worrying about overpopulation on Mars. Can you imagine? They even told him to his face they weren't sure he'd even be any good at it.
So, faced with all that doubt from literally everyone, what does he do? He gets disciplined. He creates this super methodical 5-step plan to basically retool his entire skill set over 6 months. And get this, he funded it himself by taking a contract gig at Twitch, and then just systematically taught himself everything from scratch. We're talking Coursera courses, Kaggle projects, and even going back to textbooks on the very subjects like linear algebra that he struggled with back in college. That's dedication. And you know what? All that hard work, it absolutely paid off. It got him in the door at OpenAI, and that's where he was part of a discovery that would, quite literally, change everything.
The crucial insight here, the big one, was the discovery of what they call scaling laws. And the idea is actually pretty straightforward. They found this incredibly reliable, predictable relationship. If you just add more computing power, with the right recipe, you consistently get more intelligence. It just works. And we're not talking about a small trend here. Tom was just blown away. He saw this perfectly straight line of improvement stretching over 12 orders of magnitude. That is a ridiculously, mind-bogglingly large range. He said he'd never seen anything like it outside of, fundamental physics. And that was it. That's what convinced him to pivot all of his work toward just scaling things up.
But here's the crazy part. Back then, a lot of academics hated this idea. They thought it was, not elegant. They called it wasteful, unintellectual, just brute forcing the problem. But hey, as the unofficial slogan at Anthropic apparently goes, sometimes you just got to do the stupid thing that works.
So, armed with this incredibly powerful and kind of controversial insight, Tom and a small group decided to take a massive risk. They leave OpenAI to go start something completely new. And this really just paints the picture of the insane odds they were up against. I mean, look at this. On one side, you've got OpenAI in 2020 with $1 billion in funding, all the established star power. They're a known entity. And on the other side, you have Anthropic in 2021. Just 7 co-founders, starting up in the middle of a pandemic, trying to recruit people who had to join purely for the mission, because there was definitely no prestige yet.
And their breakthrough, it came from a pretty unexpected place: coding. Their model, which they named Claude, went from being this niche player, I'm talking single-digit preference among YC founders in 2023, to becoming the default choice for almost 90% of them just 1 year later. That is a massive, shocking come-from-behind win.
So what was their secret? It was this really unique kind of empathy. See, instead of only thinking about the developers using the tool, they started treating the AI model, Claude, as the user. They started asking questions like, okay, what tools does Claude need to do its job better? This focus on the model itself, that was their secret weapon.
Okay, so how does this specific breakthrough, how does this story connect to the bigger picture? Well, Tom's journey gives us this incredible front-line view of one of the largest transformations happening in the entire world right now.
He puts it like this: humanity is on track for what is probably the largest infrastructure build-out of all time. We're talking bigger than the Apollo project and the Manhattan Project combined. He's convinced it's the largest thing we, as a species, have ever undertaken.
And the scale it's just staggering. The spending on the computing power for AI is growing at this wild 3x per year pace. And that's not a guess. He says that rate is already locked in for the near future. It's happening. But, and this is a big but, this incredible growth is starting to smash into real-world limits. He says that right now, electrical power is the #1 bottleneck, especially here in the US. So the new frontiers, the new challenges, are things like getting permits to build data centers and just physically building more hardware. It's a massive challenge.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? His advice, looking back for his younger self, and really for anyone starting out today, is to stop chasing external validation. You know, things like fancy degrees or the prestige of a big company name. Instead, he says take more risks. Focus on the work that is genuinely meaningful to you, the kind of stuff that a more idealized version of yourself would actually be proud of.
And that really just leaves us with one final question to think about for ourselves. What is the work that you would be proud of?